Hello and welcome to NC Continental Prime, reaching live from News Central Studios in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Genga Aborowa, and these are the headlines of this hour. ECOWAS leaders meet in Ghana to discuss Guinea's political situation. 7 African Africans make Time magazine's list of 100 most influential people in the world for 2021. And former Prime Minister of Gabon, Kasmir Oyemba, dies of COVID-19. We'll bring you all the details shortly. For our viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is Continental Prime and News Central. The news begins in West Africa, where leaders of the regional bloc ECOWAS have met in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, to discuss the political situation in Guinea. This is the second meeting since President Alpha Condé was overthrown 11 days ago. ECOWAS is demanding the release of the detained president and the establishment of a civilian-led transition as soon as possible. ECOWAS chairperson, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, says the heads of state will take key decisions that would have serious implications for regional stability and democratic values.
During our virtual conference of 8 September 2021, we reiterated our condemnation, suspended Guinea forthwith from membership of our organization, and decided to establish immediately to Guinea a high-level ECOWAS mission composed of the chairperson of the Council of States, the Ghanaian Foreign Minister, the Honorable Shirley Ayoko Boutre, the President of the ECOWAS Commission, His Excellency Jean-Claude Brou, the Foreign Minister of Burkina Faso, the Honorable Alpha Barry, and the Foreign Minister of Togo, the Honorable Robert Dussey, to assess the situation in that country and report back to us. The delegation went to Guinea on Friday, the 10th of September, met the military leaders, and saw President Alpha Condé in his place of detention. They have made a report to us, which will be the basis of our deliberations at this emergency summit on Guinea. We will receive also a report from the mediator of the Malian crisis, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, on developments in Mali. We are required to take informed decisions on these matters. I count on you, Excellencies, to help proffer durable solutions to the crisis. And I'm confident that, as in the past, we will rise to the occasion. I wish us fruitful deliberations, and I thank you for your attention and declare this opening ceremony closed.
Staying in West Africa, the United Nations says 1 million Nigerian children will likely stay away from school because of the threat of violence after a series of mass kidnappings targeting students this year. More than 1,000 pupils have been snatched in a mass abductions for ransom by criminal gangs in Nigeria's northwest and central states since December 2020, with dozens still in captivity. Some of the state governments have temporarily shut schools after the abductions. As schools resume this month, the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, says many children will be cut off from their education and other vital benefits the schools provide. UNICEF adds that there have been 20 attacks on schools in Nigeria this year, and more than 1,400 pupils were taken, while 16 died. Staying in Nigeria, gender rights advocates have tasked President Muhammadu Buhari to honor his pledge of increasing women participation in governance. Some of them spoke during a 2-day dialogue meeting with policymakers in the nation's capital, Abuja, saying despite claims of an improvement in women's political representation, visible progress has been very low. They say they want an enabling environment for women participation in politics ahead of the upcoming general elections in 2023.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who made an election promise of 40% representation for women, in 2018, I remember that meeting, and we are still holding the president account to his promise. A promise is a promise. In elected positions, we can understand there are not enough women. But when you have appointed positions, where we are having heads of agencies, we are having board committees all over the country, and women are still not seen, it is by not honoring that.
We can't rely on the goodwill of male political leaders to make that happen. It has to be legislated, and we've seen that across the world. And that's why, as UN Women, we align ourselves to the advocacy calls for women's representation through affirmative action in the Constitution and the ongoing constitutional review process, and also believe that passage of laws such as the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill will address barriers that hinder women's participation.
We have thought outside the box to try and force, for want of a better word, the participation of women. There are two critical amendments in the Constitution that we have set forth, and it's not going to be easy because of the obstacles that I mentioned earlier. But it's like I've always said, power is not served a la carte. You have to grab it, and we are well in the process of grabbing it.
In the meantime, as the West African country prepares for the general elections in 2023, the government of Kogi State has urged the youth not to relent in their political participation. As the Southwest Youth Political Conference held in Lagos State, Nigeria's commercial capital, a number of Kogi State government officials urged the gathering of Kogi indigents to emulate the footsteps of the state governor, Yahaya Bello, who's currently the youngest governor in Nigeria, and be more active in matters of governance. The conference, which was themed towards a Youth Political Conference 2023 general election, had in attendance the Kogi State Chief of Staff, Abdul Karim Asuku, who said it's time for Nigerian youths to take charge come 2023.
So now, what is this telling you? That we have had youth who bring Nigeria to what we have today, and that agility is required to govern over 200 million people. What are we doing today? We are electing retirees to decide the fate of over 200 million. That is why Nigeria, we are where we are today. So when you say the youth are asking for power, they are not asking for power because they are challenging the senior citizen for nothing. It's because of the pitiable situation of our country today, and what youth have been able to achieve in the past, and what they envisage that will be able to achieve if you happen to gain power today. Come 2023. So if you have youth deciding the fate of our nation, it is going to be youth o'clock. Energy is required in political system. If civil service is placing 60 years of age as retirement, at 37, I'm a chief of staff. If you look close, you will see that I've started growing gray hair. That is the pressure that comes with political office. What more of a retiree? We keep recycling presidency, bringing retiree, anybody above 60, retiree, to come and decide our fate. And we are saying no. They have done so much, and we respect them. They should go take advisory role, be advising us so that we can have youth that will pilot the affair of this country, as we have had it before in the past. We're not asking for too much. And then we're not going to do it via what any violence means. It's going to be via the ballot box. That's why we're encouraging you to come out and take their PVC. Because 2023 is going to be what? Transition, by their ballot.
Nigerians have been tasked to support ongoing military operations against bandits in the northwest region of the country. One member of Parliament, Ali Ndume, spoke to newsmen at the Senate in Abuja, saying those against the operations are insensitive to the plight of residents of the area who have lost their means of livelihood. Ndume calls for human rights for the bandits. Ndume says calls for human rights for the bandits are unwarranted considering the atrocities they have committed, and for stricter sanctions for those engaging in banditry.
we are facing serious problem of banditry in this country, and it affects all of us. Then when the army stands up to the occasion and starts taking the fight to the bandits and achieving results, the next thing you people start talking about is, oh, human rights, mass killing, and all that. So what do you want the military to do? I don't know whether you are from the Northwest, but you know how life these people have made life. To me, if we can identify the bandits that have been killing people recklessly, you don't have to waste time to kill them. And I'm sure some of you are of that. Then you start talking about human rights. Which right? What of the right of the people that were killed, small children, women raped by these people? And then when the Nigerian army stands up to them, and then they kill our soldiers, ambush them, put AIDs or whatever to blow them off, and then now you start asking me a question about their human rights. This is very unfortunate. I must say it.
Still in Nigeria, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Abdulrasheed Bawa, was on Thursday rushed out of the presidential villa in Abuja after he slumped at a program. The incident occurred as Bawa was given his goodwill message at the National Identity Day celebration. The anti-corruption agency's boss was talking about a man the commission arrested in Ibadan, Oyo State, with 116 SIM cards. When he stopped talking, he had to be assisted to his seat by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Isa Ali Pantami, and other senior officials at the event, but slumped on his seat and he was immediately rushed out of the venue. Time magazine has listed 7 Africans amongst its list of 100 most influential people in the world for 2021. It includes figures from the world of academia, science, activism, and economics. The Nigerian head of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, featured on the list. All the key names on the list include South African Tesla CEO Elon Musk, Beninese singer Angelique Kidjo, Cameroonian Dr. John Nkengasong, who heads the African Union's COVID response, and Kenyan environmental activist Felix Omido, Senegalese writer and musician Fair Winsar, as well as Ethiopian entrepreneur and food policy specialist Sarah Menka were also on the list. Now in Central Africa, a private television station owned by Democratic Republic of Congo opposition politician has been raided by police. The radio television satellitaire RTVS-01 is owned by the coordinator of the Lumumba opposition coalition, Adolphe Muzito. It was raided after a demonstration organized by the coalition. The secretary of the television station, Patrick Kangakutu, says the police wanted to arrest journalists who covered the protest. 2 cameras and motorcycles were reportedly impounded by the police. We now head to East Africa, where Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed has suspended the Prime Minister's powers to hire and fire officials. The dispute between Mohamed and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble marks an escalation of months of tension between them. The president, in a statement, said the Prime Minister violated the constitution, adding that the suspension will last until the conclusion of elections later this year. Mohamed and Roble had clashed in April when the president unilaterally extended his 4-year term by 2 years. We now head to the north of the continent, where we understand that the Egyptian president Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has been criticized over a high-profile announcement that the government plans to build the country's largest ever prison complex. Critics of the president's announcement say they are expecting authorities to build hospitals, schools and houses in a country which has a severe housing shortage and a water crisis. Egypt has also been criticized by human rights groups and the United Nations for its human rights records. They say the North African country under President Sisi has seen its heaviest crackdown on dissidents. I beg your pardon. You're watching NC Continental Prime. Coming up on the news, former Prime Minister of Gabon, Kasmir Oye Mba, dies of COVID-19. We'll bring you details of this and more when we return. You're welcome back to NC Continental Prime. Earlier on the news, we told you about the meeting of ECOWAS leaders in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, where President Nana Akufo-Addo has called for the military authorities in Guinea to release the detained former President Alpha Condé. It is the second meeting in 11 days of ECOWAS leaders calling for return to democratic process in the country. Now, joining us live this evening on NC Continental Prime to unpack all of this is African Affairs analyst Dr. David Matsanga. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Matsanga, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya.
Good evening, all of the viewers, wherever you are across the globe.
Thank you, Dr. Matsanga. Now, today marks the second meeting in 11 days where ECOWAS leaders are calling for the release of detained former leader Alpha Condé since it was ousted 11 days ago. What do you think of this call by ECOWAS leaders? It seems to be falling on deaf ears by the military to the military authorities in Guinea.
First of all, it has always been the same announcements made. Whenever a coup takes place in Africa, either in ECOWAS, East Africa, or in Sudan, or whatever, it is the same call by these regional bodies. But the leaders of the coup are not interested. Some of them are not going to hear anything of what ECOWAS will want to do. What they want to say, they will take on national laws. The national laws of Guinea that govern corruption. You can see the type of statement that the leaders have put forward, the junta leaders. They are saying he mishandled quite a lot of things. He violated the constitution. He went and got a third term. Corruption cases are now going to come up after this meeting. Now, the best thing that ECOWAS should do, and all African Union should change the constitution. We should know where the trigger mechanism is.
Yeah, but Dr. Matsanga, yes. Sorry to interrupt you there. You said we should know in retrospect now the trigger mechanism for when a government is going out of hand. For example, you did mention the third term bid by President Alpha Condé. These are some of the things that led to his ousting. But if the ECOWAS or the African Union do that, wouldn't that be interfering in a country's internal affairs? If they do that to stop the trigger mechanism that you just talked about now, wouldn't that be meddling in internal affairs?
Time has come now for African Union to change that clause. Time has come for ECOWAS to change that clause. And believe me, honor the presidents and the delegations in Accra, we are thinking of going to change that clause. That we should know, we should now practice democracy, multi-party democracy. If there is change of term limits are the causes of the coups. You see everybody in Africa at the moment, in West Africa, Ouattara wanted to change, he changed his age. People are even changing age. People are even faking age to be younger or to be able to go to power. We have seen that in Uganda. Changes term limits
and presidential term limits too.
Yes. So this leads to coups. These are coups. So we must first of all find the root cause. Why are coups taking place? You saw that in Chad. People did not like the way the Chadan president wanted another term. Unfortunately, he was killed before he could. We have seen that in Mali. We have seen everywhere. We have seen it in Khartoum. Bashir was removed partly because he had now again wanted another maybe 60th term. You know, we African Union must change the regulations. We can't be there rubber stampers.
Now let's talk about the decisions and the things that were talked about in the meeting today in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. ECOWAS is threatened to take a very decisive decision on Guinea if they don't return to civilian rule in a short while. We've seen precedents in Mali, where most of these military regimes give an 18-month transitional period or 2 years. Why is the case in Guinea different? Why do they want them to return to immediate civilian rule in a short while? And do you think there's room for negotiations? Otherwise, will ECOWAS, I know this is a preemptive question, but will ECOWAS go the way of Yahya Jammeh, threatening to kick him out of office if he doesn't leave?
I think the best way for ECOWAS is to kick them out. Because first of all, the coup leaders they are coup leaders who look presentable. They are coup leaders who look serious. The ones in Guinea look childish. The statements, the way things they are being done, I think you look like it's just a comedy. The ones in Khartoum, when they staged the coup in Khartoum, you could see senior men coming out, generals coming saying, we want to do this and that, and bring a government of national unity. These ones are just playing with words. They are changing the words. They are telling a different story. I think ECOWAS, one of the things why I like ECOWAS and I like East African Community, ECOWAS and the SADC, they go in. If the worst come to the worst, they will go in.
But do they have the capacity, the military means? Do they have a standing force? Wouldn't that be leading to more bloodshed if they do that? Because you would expect some level of resistance from the coup leaders in Guinea.
Definitely the level of resistance will be there, but they cannot hold for long. The level of resistance during Yahya Jammeh's regime, when Senegal pushed its troops into Gambia, you saw the resistance fell very quickly. People change, even some of the generals. These are Lieutenant Colonel, they have taken over power. They are senior generals in the army in Guinea, Conakry. And some of them are not very comfortable. Unless we take decisive measures, Africa will continue to be the same problem. But also, let's tell the leaders who are in power in Africa that time comes when it has come. Pack and go. Do the Shakespearean way. There is a time for everything. There is a time, even do the Bible way. There is a time for prayer. There is a time for getting tired. There is also a time for continuation and time for no continuation. So why don't you just do the Shakespearean way? You came, you have served your stage, you have played, go back. Leave a stage for others. But in Africa, we are having a problem here. It is not only in Guinea. I'm telling you, the whole of sub-Saharan Africa has those problems.
Now, talking about altering constitutions, sit-tight leaders, recently there are reports that the president of Uganda, His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is planning to send some of his troops all the way from East Africa to Guinea. What does this portend for the continent? And do you think it's an empty bluff, or is a case of, an old boys association protecting another member of the old boys association? Because they're not really talking about the trigger mechanisms, the root causes of the schools, like you mentioned earlier.
First of all, for us, I am also Ugandan, and there is one thing that we should give credit to President Museveni. If you left Museveni to finish Somalia, all those terrorists would be in the Indian Ocean, that they would be gone. There would be no terrorists in Somalia if you left him to do so. He has the capability, he has the army, he has the men. Uganda looks like it has about 2 to 3 million armed people and arms, and all of them well trained. They are trained in all combat fields. So when you hear those reports, don't understand them. Or Uganda is guarding already Equatorial Guinea. We have a force. You know that Ngwema is the president there is being guarded by our forces. The oil fields are being guarded by Ugandan forces. We are not very far from there. For one thing that I give a credit to President Museveni is that when a military situation of that nature, I wish he became very, 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 very serious and allowed and on the ground, had his army. He is very quick at doing those things. You know very well he has gone into, he went into Somalia alone And he managed
to deal with
go
the
to
Al-Shabaab.
Somalia.
Yeah.
Yes, he can go, and then let those boys in Guinea not to think that it's a threat. Museveni does not make threats, because you know they were very good friends with Alpha Conde, and it is very, very bad for you. More so if you see your friend whom you were with.
But it's more of an ECOWAS. It's more of an ECOWAS problem now. So we'll wait and see what happens, because President Museveni has his East African community issues to deal with. Now, just before we begin to wrap things up, like you mentioned earlier, Dr. Matsanga, we're gradually seeing the incursion of the military in some African countries. You mentioned Sudan. You also mentioned Mali. And we've seen the recent coup in Guinea now. Is the continent witnessing a return of coups like we saw in the 70s and 80s?
Yes, the coups are, you know what is happening? For me, I tell the truth. There are certain countries in Europe that are paying for this massacre to take over government. And I'm telling you, the coup in Guinea, someone paid someone to take over and dismantle the Guinea system. Yes, there was this term, 30-term extension and so on. But there are certain countries in Europe that are not willing to let it go, especially French-speaking countries. We have problems, most of them in the French-speaking countries. I don't know why we cannot shout louder about the France. You see how Kagame went to Cape Delgado. Everything is quiet. Within about a week, there is no more killings there. He wiped out those boys. The guys for us from this region, we are not worried. In fact, you have dismissed it is ECOWAS. It could not be ECOWAS. Don't be shocked to see tomorrow paratroopers landing in Conakry.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matsanga. Nigeria's former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, is currently leading negotiations between the ruling junta in Guinea and ECOWAS leaders. So we'll see how that goes. And I look forward to talking to you. We do appreciate your insights, Dr. David Matsanga. Thanks for your time on Continental Prime this evening.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Dr. David Matsanga there, African Affairs analyst, talking to us live from Nairobi, Kenya, on the situation in Guinea. And now, to a continued coverage of the coronavirus pandemic across the continent. Former Prime Minister of Gabon, Kassim Oye-Mba, died on Thursday in Paris, France, after he was hospitalized for COVID-19 infection. Hospitalized in Libreville, the capital of Gabon, for a week. Kassim Oye-Mba was transferred to a hospital in Paris on September 11th due to his critical condition. He was head of government from 1990 to 1994. Kassim Oye-Mba was the governor of the Bank of Central Africa States, BEAC, the common bank for 6 Central African countries, headquartered in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Gabonese President Ali Bongo Ondimba has paid him a vibrant tribute following the announcement of his death. The African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, says the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa surpassed 8.09 million. And Thursday, the Africa CDC, in its COVID-19 update, says the death toll from the pandemic across the continent stands at over 200,000, while over 700,000 patients have recovered from the virus. South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya and Ethiopia are among the countries with the most cases. In terms of the caseload, Southern Africa is the most affected region, followed by the northern and eastern parts of the continent. Africa faces a shortfall of almost 500 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines required to hit its year-end target. This was disclosed by the World Health Organization on Thursday. The continent aims to fully vaccinate 40% of its population. The shortfall comes as the COVAX facility slashed planned deliveries of vaccines to African nations for this year by around 150 million. The regional director of the World Health Organization for Africa, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, says export bans and vaccine hoarding have a chokehold on vaccine supplies to Africa. She adds that as long as rich countries lock COVAX out of the market, Africa will miss its vaccination goals. Guinea's health ministry says the outbreak of Marburg disease announced at the beginning of August is now over. The ministry says no new case has been recorded. The country confirmed West Africa's first case of Marburg, a highly infectious disease in the same family as the virus that causes Ebola almost 6 weeks ago. At the time, the World Health Organization said the virus needed to be stopped in its tracks, but authorities are still investigating how the man was infected. Marburg virus disease is transmitted to people from fruit bats and spreads between humans through the transmission of bodily fluids. Cases are extremely rare, with the last major outbreak in Angola in 2005. You're watching NC Continental Prime. Still ahead on the news, China fully vaccinates more than 1 billion people against coronavirus. We'll bring you more on this when we return. Now, China has fully vaccinated more than 1 billion people against coronavirus. That is 71% of its population. This according to official figures released on Thursday. The country had mostly curbed the virus within its border, but is racing to get the vast majority of its population vaccinated as a new outbreak takes hold in the southeast. Late last month, Chinese health authorities said 890 million people in China have been fully vaccinated and 2 billion doses administered. The government has not publicly announced a target for vaccination coverage, but top virologist Zhong Nanshan said last month that the country is likely to have 80% of its population inoculated by the end of the year. France on Thursday condemned the abrupt end to a submarine contract previously agreed to by Australia. The French government is calling the Australian government's new UK-US deal a stab in the back. Jean-Yves Le Drian, the French foreign minister, told reporters that they had established a relationship of trust with Australia and that the trust has been betrayed. Late on Wednesday, the $40 billion submarine contract signed in 2016 with a French company was passed over for the newly established partnership dubbed AUKUS. In the meantime, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says the deal would allow the Department of Defence to meet its mission to protect Australia and its national interest and its regional friends into the future. Now in business, Nigerian Customs Service has accused the nation's elite of encouraging the smuggling of vehicles into the country. The Assistant Comptroller General of the Customs in charge of modernization, Saidu Galadima, while speaking to a session of the House of Representatives Committee on Customs, says federal government ministries, departments and agencies are also complicit as they patronize car smugglers that evade paying custom duties to the nation's coffers. Galadima also urged lawmakers to help amend the nation's Procurement Act to make it mandatory for verification of vehicles before purchase.
Unfortunately today, the big men in Nigeria, I didn't say National Assembly members, all their escort vehicles, Hilux, are smuggled vehicles. MDS, Ministry and Departmental of Government today, they patronize smuggle Hilux. And that's why if you go to our system, the number of Hilux importation has dropped, but you find them hundreds in town. Mostly they use them as escorts. If you make an amendment to the next Finance Act to make an amendment to Procurement Act, that before a vehicle is taken over, you verify the custom vehicle to go along and come. Nigerian Customs Service buy Hilux vehicles, but they don't take delivery until when the papers are verified that duty are paid. We seriously need your support in this regard.
Now that we need more revenue, is to give maybe 3-month grace for everybody to come and pay duty, including those ministries that are using backup healers without duty payment, and whoever, other members or senator or whatever, or presidency, anywhere.
We now join Tolulope Adelera Balogun for the rest of the business news.
This is business on NC Continental Prime. I'm Tolulope Adelera Balogun. South Africa's monetary policy is expected to remain accommodative at the next MPC meeting on September 23rd. The spread of the Delta variant has been overshadowed by impressive company earnings, a pickup in the vaccination drive, and continued stimulus in the country. As such, global equities continued their advance, with the Morgan Stanley Capital International, or MSCI All-Country World Index, printing 2.5% in USD for the month of August. This makes it the 7th consecutive month of gains. Emerging markets slightly outperformed developed markets, with the MSCI Emerging Markets Index printing 2.6% against 2.5% from the MSCI World Index. Zimbabwe has requested for more electricity from Mozambique and Zambia. This request is intended to fill a power shortfall that's led to 12-hour shortages. Now, according to Zimbabwe's Energy Minister Soda Zemu, the country is in discussions with Mozambique for the recently commissioned power plant to give Zimbabwe an additional 180 megawatts. Zemu added that they are at the final stage of discussion with Zambia to get an additional 100 megawatts. According to the Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority, the current electricity cuts were because of rehabilitation work at the Kariba South Hydropower Plant, constraints at its oil-fired Hawange plant, and limited power imports. Over 1,200 megawatts is being produced by plants in the country, while demand is at 1,700 megawatts. Zambia and Mozambique currently supply Zimbabwe with as much as 170 megawatts of electricity. A new Bank of Ghana report has shown that deposits with banks rose by almost a quarter to 110.4 billion Ghana cedis in the first half. In the period under review, loans to businesses and individuals grew by less than 6% as more bank funds went into the purchase of risk-free government paper within the period. The banking sector reports indicated that savings in banks rose by 22.5% in the first half of June, higher than the 19.1% growth recorded in the same period last year. The reports indicated that the strong growth in deposits in the first half of 2021 relative to last year was largely driven by liquidity flows within the domestic economy, emanating from the COVID-19 fiscal stimulus. Some also came from payments to contractors, specialized deposit-taking institutions' depositors, and clients of fund managers licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And from the West, now we move away. Uganda's export quota plunged in July as a new levy on gold, which vies with coffee as the nation's leading trade product, halted shipments of the metal. The finance ministry says shipments from the country fell 30% to $300.4 million from a year earlier. Exports also fell by a similar margin from the previous month. While Uganda is Africa's largest coffee exporter, it has recorded more earnings from gold shipments in recent months. The metal brought in $166 million in June, compared with $58.6 million from coffee beans. However, Uganda's trade deficits in July narrowed to $196.4 million from $478.1 million in June, as a decline in imports offset the fall in exports. Economic activity also took a hit from measures imposed to curb a wave of coronavirus infections in the period. And in the northern part of the continent, Libya's National Oil Corporation has announced the resumption of oil exports at the ports of Sidra, the largest oil depot in the country. Work has also resumed at Ras Lanouf, a subsidiary of the state firm, after days of suspension due to a sit-in by protesters demanding jobs. In a statement, the chairman of the National Oil Corporation, Mustafa Sanela, said he communicated with local figures of the region to urgently intervene and end the sit-in, and urged the young people to engage in graduate training programs. On Wednesday, the National Oil Corporation announced the resumption of oil exports from the port of Hariga after withdrawal of protesters who had been blocking it for a week, demanding jobs. And that's all the business news we have for you right now. You're watching NC Continental Prime on News Central. I'm Tolulope Adilaru Balogun. There's more right after this.
Now in sports, Super Falcons of Nigeria battle the female Eagles of Mali. For more on this and more, we join Udoka Njoku for sports news. Good evening, Udoka.
Good evening, Benga, and thank you very much. Now, talking about the Super Falcons, the 9-time African champions battled the female Eagles of Mali in the opening match of the maiden edition of the Aisha Buhari Invitational Women's Tournament in the city of Lagos. Now, both teams squared up at the remodeled Mobola G. Johnson Arena at the Lincoln Stadium, and it was substitute Gift Monday who handed Nigeria a sweet 2-0 victory on the opening day of the maiden edition of the tournament. Now, Monday, who plays for FC Robo Queens of Lagos in the Nigeria Women Football League, spoke to News Central after the game. She also spoke along with her coach, Randy Waldrum.
What inspired me most is that I'm playing on a home ground and I'm representing my country, so I have to do my best. I have to give in everything I have, and that alone is enough inspiration to me. And I think I was relaxed. I was not pressured. The information given to me by the coach was what I carried out, and it worked out fine.
We don't really like to refer to our reserves as substitutes, right? I always think of them as game changers. And so I think when we made these changes in the second half, you saw the team change. And obviously, Gift has done this for us many times. Down in Texas late against Portugal, she showed that she can play and score goals for us, and we know she's done very well in the league here. So it was always a plan to get her playing. It was just a matter of what point we could get her on, but really proud of her and the job she did coming off the bench, and she was a game changer for us.
All right, moving on from there, let's go straight to Kenya. As a former sports cabinet secretary, Hassan Wario has been released after paying a 3.6 million shillings fine in a funds embezzlement case. The 42 million shilling scandal of the 2016 Olympic Games in Brazil came back to haunt Wario, who was found guilty of abuse of office. Wario and the head of mission to the Rio Olympics Games, Stephen Soy, appeared before Nairobi Anti-Corruption Court Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma, who convicted them for using their positions to mismanage funds set aside for the Games. Wario becomes the first cabinet secretary under President Uhuru Kenyatta to be found guilty of committing a corruption offense while in office. His mistake was to include 3 people in the traveling party to Rio de Janeiro when they were not part of Team Kenya and had all their traveling expenses and allowances paid by public funds. That's it on Sport Update on NC Continental Prime. I am Udoka Njoku.
Thank you very much, Udoka.